Hey everyone, welcome to the UFO Hub live stream. Today's guest is going to be Bonnie Jean Mitchell, and we'll be talking about her book called The Shift, A Lifetime of Contact Leading to Higher Consciousness. I will get to Bonnie in a second, and as always, we will get into her background information. But first, for those watching, I would like to let you know that you can later on during the Q&A section ask Bonnie some questions. You can submit them on Twitch or YouTube if you happen to be watching, or you can talk to Bonnie directly over Telegram and ask via voice, because we're live streaming on YouTube, Twitch, and voice only over Telegram. For the submitted question portion written, if you could please put 3 asterisks before the question so that it pops out at me and I know it's a question for Bonnie and not just a regular chatter in the chat. Of course, in Telegram, you can join the group that's going on right now. The link is in the description below this video, where you can listen in. And there's a little icon where it looks like a person is raising their hand. Just tap on that and I'll add you to my queue to ask your question. But other than that, I think this is all the information I have. Oh yeah, and just recently I got back on Twitter, so I will be posting just links and updates on there as well. And so for those of you that have a Twitter account, you can keep up to date that way as well. All right, so let me bring in Bonnie, and then we'll go from there. Welcome, Bonnie. How are you?
Hi, Adnan. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing just fine. I'm glad we're able to connect and do this today. I know you reached out to me quite some time ago, and I
Mhm.
had to postpone. What, it's been at least several months now, and but
Yeah.
I'm glad we made this happen.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad to be here.
Well, Bonnie, I figured, especially for a first-time guest, if you could please start out getting into your background information and tell us about you and how everything evolved for you, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, great. Well, I'm a lifelong contactee, and I this has been happening my whole life. It started when I was 4 years old, and I'm 54 now, so it's been 50 years. And I run the website called Alien Abduction Help. I started that in the year 2000. And I also have the website Awaken Video with my husband, John. And we make a lot of videos about just everything paranormal, metaphysical, things that the government doesn't tell you. We've got a lot of different categories there. We like to bring out the truth. So we like to awaken people. I, let's see, I guess it was about the year 1989, I reached out to the Edgar Casey Foundation, which is also called the ARE, or the Association for Research and Enlightenment. And they're in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I was getting a magazine from them called Venture Inward. And because I was having these experiences, and at the time I really didn't have anybody to talk to, because it was really picking up heavily for me in my early 20s. So in 1988, I was 20 years old, and I was having a lot of experiences. And there was no internet yet, so I couldn't just go online and look it up or connect with people. So I sent a letter in to the pen pal section of Venture Inward magazine, and I ended up hearing back from about 25 people. And these people wrote letters to me, like handwritten letters that were delivered through the post office. Those are back in the old days. And it was really great. Most of the people had seen UFOs, and a smaller majority had actually been in contact with the occupants of the UFOs. So it was great for me. I had some people to interact with. So I got a letter from the editor of Venture Inward magazine. His name was Robert Smith. And he was really curious about, did I hear back from anybody? And I was, yeah, like 25 people wrote back. And he was so surprised. And he said that the people over at the the ARE, the Edgar Casey Foundation, they had been talking about writing an article about UFOs and extraterrestrials, but they were really unsure if their audience would be interested or not. So just the fact that I wrote into the pen pal section and heard from 25 people kind of inspired them to do more about it. And so two very nice ladies from the ARE came to my house to interview me. And that article ran in Venture Inward magazine, not for a couple of years afterwards. I think it was 1992 when they ran the article. And then they also ran an article about Dr. John Mack from Harvard University, who was a psychiatrist there and a professor there. And he was researching and looking into the alien abduction phenomenon. And he was interviewing people and doing a lot of work into it. So lo and behold, I think it was 1993, the Edgar Casey Foundation had their very first UFO conference. All because I had written this letter to the pen pal section. So amazing how that worked out. And I got to go to the conference, and I was there with Dr. John Mack and Bud Hopkins and a number of other speakers. So that was really great for me. And that was like really, empowering and let me know that I wasn't alone. And there's a lot of people who have these experiences. So after that, I actually did a comic strip for UFO magazine for a number of years. I think it was 2006 through 2008. So that was fun. And basically, what I do is I help people with their experiences. I've got the website Alien Abduction Help. I've got a forum there where people come and they talk about their experiences. And I've written 2 books about it, Journey with the Star People and The Shift, which is my newest book, came out about 6 months ago. So my 2 books are basically my life story. It's my spiritual journey with the Star People. And The Shift is really relevant to what we're going through right now, because we are shifting. We're having this great awakening that humanity is going through. So that's basically about me, who I am. And if you like, I can just start from the beginning when this all began for me, when I was
Please
4
do.
years old.
Please do.
Okay. So when I was 4 years old, I lived in Virginia with my parents. We lived at the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains in a little log cabin, and it was like a fairy tale life. It was just, I was a little girl who loved to be outside playing all day. It was out in nature, and it was paradise for me. And so my parents were very loving and kind, and it was great. It was great growing up with them in that location. And so at nighttime, when my parents would say goodnight to me, they'd come and tuck me into bed, and sometimes they'd read to me or sing to me. I was very, very lucky little girl to have such loving parents. But when they would go out of the room, they'd shut the light off and close the door, and I'd be alone in this dark room. Well, I wasn't scared, but just really curious. And I kept my eyes open to see what I could see. So I started doing this thing every night where I would just stay awake for as long as I could, laying there in my bed and kind of staring into the darkness. And I started to see images. And these were almost like they were on a screen, like kind of like a couple feet in front of me, in front of my forehead. And I would see things that I really liked, like toys, candy, ice cream, things that I was interested in. And these images were glowing, like even though I was in this dark room, these were lit up, like the outline of the images would be all lit up with different colors. It was really, really fascinating. And so I kept doing this thing at night. And pretty soon I started to see people walking into my bedroom. And these were humans. They would walk right up to my bed, and usually there's only two of them, sometimes three, but they were very friendly people. And they'd walk up to the side of my bed and they were trying to speak to me. And I could see their lips moving and they were completely animated, they were moving, they were really there, but I could never hear what they were saying. And it was like there was a wall between us, like maybe a window or some kind of glass wall where, they couldn't touch me and I couldn't hear them talking, but we could see each other just fine. And I wonder now, looking back on it, if maybe these people could have been my great grandparents or something coming to visit me. And also, I realize now that the images that I was seeing in the dark were probably being projected from my third eye. I think that my third eye's been active my whole life, and I've been able to see a lot of things with it. So, I got used to this, seeing the images in the dark and seeing humans walk into my room. That was happening for a couple of years. But one night, I was sleeping. Actually, I was in my bed sleeping, and I woke up during the night. And I opened my eyes and I looked towards the foot of my bed, and I saw, for the first time, I saw the star people. Well, what they looked like to me were stick people, like literally made out of sticks, like so thin, with big round heads. But I couldn't see any of their facial features. I couldn't see their eyes or anything. It was really dark, and maybe it was the fact that I had never seen them before and I just didn't know what I was, looking at. So these two star people were holding hands and walking towards the foot of my bed, which made me feel a little bit like, oh, they're friendly, they're holding hands. But I got scared and I screamed, and my mother came running into the room. And as she came into the room, they just faded out. They kind of vanished from my view. And perhaps it was a change in my own conscious awareness, or whatever state of awareness I was in might have shifted when my mother came in. But anyway, she came in and sat with me, and I told her what happened. So that was the first time I saw the star people. And then, I continued doing this thing at night with my third eye. And one night I was in bed with my mother. I was 4 or 5 at the time. And I woke up during the night and I saw, floating above me, a couple of feet above me, this play tea set. It was like a teapot and all the little cups and everything on this tray. And it was something that I wanted to have so I could have tea with my dolls. And so I could see this. I was literally projecting it with my third eye. And to me, it looked so real. And I wanted to grab it. So I reached out my hand to try to get it, but I just could not grab it. It seemed like I couldn't reach it. So I decided to stand up in the bed. And I still couldn't reach it. And I started jumping up and down, which woke my mother up, of course. And I'm just like jumping and reaching. And then I realized that my hand is actually going through the image. And my mother, she didn't know what was going on. She's like, Bonnie, what are you doing? And I said, oh, Mommy, I'm trying to grab that play tea set up there. Can't you see it up there? And she didn't know what I was talking about. She couldn't see it, of course. And I realized that she was getting a little frightened. So I stopped and I sat down next to her and I described it to her. I told her what happened. And, she didn't really know what was going on. But it's funny because I was talking to her about this probably about a month ago. And she remembers it very well. And we were laughing about it. And she still doesn't really get it, what was happening with me. But I'm pretty sure that was my third eye working. So that's the kind of, child that I was, very open-minded and Also, at 4 years old, I had a really good sense of who I was and why I came here. I I felt like I came to Earth, I incarnated here to help humanity. And I knew that as I got a little bit older and I went to school through indoctrination, I would forget who I was. And I also knew that it would be it would be a lonely path. But even as a 4 year old, I felt really strong inside, and I felt brave, and I knew that I could do it. I also knew that before the end of this physical incarnation, that I would remember who I was again. So these were my thoughts as a 4 year old. So then I'm going to just jump forward to when I was 7 years old. And so something happened between the ages of 4 and 7 that I have no recollection of. Because by the time I was 7 years old, I was friends with the star people. So I was still doing this thing at night where I'd lay in the dark and I'd just keep my eyes open and I'd see all kinds of images and people walking into my room trying to talk to me. And I had this experience one night when I was 7. I was looking at the dolls on my shelf. There was a little bit of light in the room so I could see them across the room on the shelf. And as I was laying there staring at them, they started moving their eyes and their mouths. And I got scared and just pulled the covers up over my head. I was like, nope, that's a little bit too far. I don't want to see that. And but I peeked out again and looked at the dolls, and they were still coming to life. And so I kind of accepted it, and I laid there and I just watched them. And I think that my state of consciousness was shifting. And I watched these dolls, 2 of them, step off of the shelf. And as they stepped down, they grew in size to about 3.5 foot, 4 foot tall. And they turned into star people. And they walked right up to my bed. One of them walked up right to my pillow, and the other one was at the foot of my bed. And then when I saw them, I was like, oh, okay, it's just them. Oh, that's okay. And I sat up in the bed and I threw the blankets off, and it's like I already knew, like I was already used to doing it. I just hopped out of the bed, and the one next to my pillow held my left hand, and the one at the foot of the bed held my right hand. And I just walked with them, like, I was totally comfortable, and we walked out my bedroom and right out the living room, right out the front door. And I don't remember where we went or anything, but that was, one of those moments when I realized now, looking back, well, by the time I was 7 years old, I was already pretty familiar with them. And so I had a couple of experiences when I was 7 years old. So there's another one that I'd like to tell you about, because this begins the whole the secret government, the military involvement with it. So one night, I'm laying in my bed, and into my room comes running this little star person who was very short, maybe only 3 foot tall. And he was like in an urgent manner. He's like, "Come on, we gotta hide, we gotta hide." And so I jumped out of the bed, and we ended up going into the hallway closet. And we got into the closet, shut the door, and he explained to me really fast that some bad men were coming into the house, and they were looking for us, so we're hiding. So we were really quiet, and I remember standing in the closet with him and looking down at him. So I know he's really short because I was only 7. And he was looking up at me. I was looking down at him, and really quiet. And so I heard the front door open, and apparently a couple of men came in and were looking around. And I guess they were looking for me, but they didn't find me, so they went back out the front door. And we waited for a little while, and we thought the coast was clear, so we stepped out of the closet, and there was nobody in the house. I mean, my parents were in bed sleeping this whole time. So we went to the front of the house and looked out the windows and didn't see anything out there. And we thought, okay, well, he wanted me to go someplace with him. He wanted me to go out the front door and go someplace with him. Not sure where. So we end up walking out the front door together. But as soon as we get down the front steps, these two men, these human men, come rushing at us. Well, the little star person ended up running one way and I ran the other. I ran across the street to my neighbor's house, and I was very familiar with their house. I went over there all the time. And these men were chasing me. So I had really just had enough time to get to the neighbor's house and run in their back door, their kitchen door. And they had a little kitchen with a round wooden table. And so these men were right behind me, and they came in the door, and I started playing this little game of let's run around the table to get away from these men. Of course, they had no problem catching me since there was two of them. But this man stuck his foot out and tripped me, and I fell face first. And as I fell, he put something, a little piece of metal, right under my lower left-hand side rib cage. And I screamed, and the next thing I knew, I was laying on a table, silver, like a metal table, and laying next to me was a girl who was a bit older than me. She was probably about 18 or so. And we were tied down to these tables. And the bad men that had captured me or whatever, I didn't see them. It was just me and this girl. And we were really trying to comfort each other. We were, smiling at each other and talking to each other. And we were scared and really nervous, didn't know what was going on. And the room that I was in, I know now, it's an underground military base. And what it looked like was gray walls, painted gray. And the main feature that I remember are these double doors. They were metal, and they had the kind of bar that you push to open the door. And they both had windows on them, and the windows had like crisscross metal, like in between the panes of glass. And the tables that we were on were at the bottom of these stairs. Like these double doors were up on a landing, and there were a set of stairs that came down either side. And someone then walked over to us. I don't quite remember what this person looked like, but it was human. And they said to us, we are going to coat you with gold and turn you into statues. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew that if I got coated with gold, I probably wouldn't be able to breathe. And so I wondered if I was going to die. And it was really scary. And, I don't remember anything about whatever else happened. I don't remember it. I ended up waking up in my bed and I was fine. But since then, over the years, I went back to that place, that same exact room, and I have memories of it from when I was a little girl, of being in there. And there was a doctor, a man who I called a doctor. He was human. Everybody there was human. And there were nurses, and they were very friendly to me, actually. So when I was about 4.5, 5 years old, my parents brought me to the local public school to start school. And because I was already, I could already write my name, I already knew the alphabet, and I could count, pretty high. So they gave me the option. They actually asked me, my mom, took me into the office at the school and they said, "Well, do you want to go to kindergarten or do you want to go to first grade?" And I said, "I want to go to kindergarten," because I had heard somebody say that kindergarten was a nursery school. And I was so fond of the nurses in this place that I went at night that I thought, "Oh, I want to see the nurses because they're really nice to me." So I chose kindergarten because I thought nurses would be there. And I was really disappointed when they didn't show up. Um, so that was my beginning with this whole thing. And as I was getting older, like when I was 11 years old, I had another experience seeing the star people. I was um, I was getting ready for bed one night. I was just laying in bed, waiting to fall asleep again, and I was looking out my window and I saw this bright white light fall out of the sky and land in the neighbor's yard. And I called out to my parents, and my dad came in the room, and I told him what I saw. And he looked out the window and, he just tried to calm me down. He's like, "Well, it's okay. In the morning, I'll go out there and I'll check it out. I'll see what's out there." And I was like, "Okay." But I went to sleep that night and I saw what I saw was a saucer shaped object landing on the side of my house. There was a parking lot right over there. This is we had moved to a new house, so we were more like in town, and there was a parking lot right there. And I was very excited, and I jumped out of bed. And now at this point, I really think that I was out of body. A lot of my experiences happen out of body, and I think that I am going to the etheric plane to meet with these star people. And I'll get more into explaining that in a little while. So I ran out of the house, out the door, and into the parking lot, and these star people were out there, and these were a type that I had not seen yet. They were taller. They were probably at least 6 foot tall, some taller. They were thin with very white skin, and their heads were more human-sized, not huge bulbous heads, but more like a human, and their eyes were more human-like, maybe a little bit bigger. Some had blue eyes and some had black eyes, and really none of them had hair at all. So they were brand new to me, but they seemed to know me. They seemed to know me already, and they called me by name. And I think they were just kind of fascinated with me, and I was fascinated with them. And we sat there for a few minutes and talked. And they said that they would really like to come back and see me again. And that was fine with me. So I woke up in my bed the next morning, and I was so excited. I jumped up and I ran around the house, and my cousins were staying with me at the time. And I told them about it, and I told my parents about it. And so my cousins and I made this little game out of it. So we went out into the parking lot, and we had a notebook and pens, and I think somebody had a tape recorder. We were like doing our detective work out in the parking lot, looking for UFO marks. And we didn't really find anything. But yeah, that was one of the last experiences that I really remember from my childhood. And then I did kind of start to forget about those experiences as I was going to school and getting really involved with activities at school. And I was just distracted, from my nightly excursions. So it wasn't until I was about 19 or 20 years old when this really started picking up for me again. And I think that I had like an event that triggered my mind, because when I was 19, I started to read the book Intruders by Bud Hopkins. And some of you probably know that's kind of a scary story. It's about an alien abductee, this poor lady. She's like a victim. Um, And I couldn't get very far in the book before I had to put it down because it was scary. So a couple of months went by. I picked the book back up again, and I thought, okay, I'm going to read this. So I got into it a little bit, and I realized it just hit me so hard that this was very similar to what was happening with me and my experiences that night. And then I also ended up reading the book Communion by Whitley Strieber. And that I related a bit more to because, Whitley Strieber considers these star people to be teachers. And that's also the way that I view them now. So after I had this trigger event happen, I started having really intense visitations for about a period of 5 years. And I was seeing the star people something like once a week, sometimes twice a week. And also, in addition to that, there were military trained psychics who were coming to visit me. Sometimes after the star people would leave, then I would see these human uh, psychics showing up. So another thing that happened right around that time, and I was about 19 years old, I read a book by Edgar Cayce about dreams and dream symbolism. And Edgar Cayce suggested keeping a journal by your bedside and writing your dreams down every morning. And this way you could develop a dream dictionary with your own personal symbolism. And so I was very interested in doing that, and I started writing my dreams down. And it did take me probably about 4 months to actually train my brain to do it. Like every morning I would remember my dreams and, like 3 or 4 dreams. And I recorded all of these, and I've been recording my experiences for 35 years now. I have all of it recorded. And so I started to notice the dream symbolism. It's unique for each person. It's personal. And so I started noticing the patterns and figuring that out. But also I was having these experiences with these beings that were coming to visit me. And I just started to put this all together in my mind. And like I said, this intense period happened in my early 20s. It was about 5 years, and I call it the Star People School. So the Star People, when this started out, when I was about 20, they would come into my bedroom at night. Now, sometimes it would be the smaller star people they could be Zetas, or they could be Greys. They're something like 3.5 or 4 foot tall. Some of them have like a tan colored skin, and some of them were gray skin, and they had the big heads and the big black eyes. So what would normally happen was, um, first of all, I'm empathic, and I could feel when they were around. Like I would usually know before I went to sleep if they were around, because I would sometimes hear these weird noises outside, like I'd call them cartoon noises. And it was like boing, zip, whir, like very just strange, kind of unnatural sounds that I would associate with this. So what would happen was, I'd be laying in bed at night waiting to go to sleep. And similar to what I did when I was little, when I would just stare into the darkness. So I'd lay there and just kind of be, laying there waiting to go to sleep. And I would feel these star people nearby, either outside or, coming into the house. And I was usually pretty calm about it. And I let it happen because, I'd been through it all my life already. So I wasn't really scared of it. So 2 or 3 of them would come into my room, and they were teaching me how to raise my vibrational frequency. And it started out where I'd be laying in the bed, and I would start to feel my body getting really relaxed, like all my muscles relaxing. My body was going to sleep, but my conscious awareness was awake. And sometimes I'd lay there with my eyes open while this all played out. And I could see them, and I could feel my awareness shifting, like I was going into another state of consciousness. Well, a number of times, these couple of star people would pull me right out of my body. They were taking my conscious awareness right out of my physical body. And one time they were doing this, they were actually pulling me by my shoulders, one on each shoulder, just kind of pulling me out. And because they were so short, they were kind of pulling me down towards the floor a little bit. And I felt myself leaving my body. My physical body was in the bed and I was leaving it. And my daughter, who was probably 3 years old at the time, she was laying in the bed with me that night. And she actually sat up in the bed physically and yelled out, "Mommy, where are you going?" And that just snapped me right back into my body. I was like, okay, nope, I'm not going to go. And I snapped myself back into my body, and I woke up and I gave her a hug and I said, "That's okay, honey. I'm not going to go anywhere." And I stayed right there. So I did have a choice, whether I wanted to go or not. So most of my experiences have been, pretty positive that way, where I've been able to have a lot of control over what happens. So this process that they would go through, now they told me that it was because we had to be on the same frequency to meet up and work together. So they were lowering theirs a bit and helping me raise mine. We are kind of meeting halfway. And once we got to that point, my consciousness would leave my body, and they would sometimes float me, uh, right through a closed window or right through the wall, like you hear about, which happens with contactees. And we'd go on board one of their ships, or we'd be outside, out in the woods or something. But I've been on many, many different types of craft and interacted with different types of star people. But really, the ones that I have spent the most time with are the tall white ones. And I'm guessing that they are Pleiadian or Nordic. I think they're what people would describe as Pleiadian. The thing is, for me, I don't know if they're really physical beings, if they're really physically, traveling from the Pleiades, or they're multidimensional and more etheric. Humans, we're also multidimensional. There's so many different dimensions of ourself that we can experience. So I think that really what's been happening is that they taught me how to raise my frequency like this. And after years of doing that, I just started going out on my own. And they didn't come into my room anymore. I would just go out and meet them. So I learned how to leave my body and do that. And I went through, like I said, this Star People school where I was trained by them. So it was these Pleiadians and I think Zetas mostly involved with this. And so what they taught me was the biggest thing was to release all of my fear, to never be afraid ever. Because when you're afraid, you're not in control of yourself. You, when you are filled with love and you're connected to your highest self and connected to source, well, that's when you're in your true power. That's when you have control. So they were teaching me how to be in control of the situation when I was out of body, when I was on the astral plane. And then I moved up to being on the etheric plane with them, which is kind of like, it's also being out of body, but it's like a higher awareness where you can be so aware and so conscious. It's very real. It's just as real, if not more real, than being physical. So they taught me to, release all my fear. And for years, they put me in what I call fake scenarios. It's almost like a holographic room or like virtual reality. They would come up with a scenario where I would have to defend myself against an attacker. Or maybe it was just something scary like a big spider. But it was all about my reaction to it. Like they were teaching me how to not have a bad reaction, how to keep myself calm and to stay in control no matter what was happening outside of me. And so because sometimes these military trained psychics were showing up and they were human. Now for a while when these psychics would show up and they'd ask me questions and I would answer them because for a while I didn't know any better. I was young and naive and they wanted to know, well, what did you do with the star people and what did they say to you? What did you do? Tell us. And I would tell them, everything until I realized that probably wasn't such a good idea. And when I stopped, you know, uh, willingly describing everything to them, then they started attacking me because what they do is they just want to scare you so badly that you're not in control of yourself anymore. So it makes sense, what the star people were teaching me. And so the psychics would come and um, they chase me around. They do things to scare me. They were trying to get information from me. And over the years, as I refused to speak with them anymore, the attacks got a little more severe. But fortunately, the star people were teaching me how to defend myself against psychic attack. And that was against anybody, whether it was human or an alien, it didn't matter. They were teaching me how to protect myself. And so facing fear, learning how to defend myself. And then the next lesson was learning how to use energy, like subtle energy inside of my body, how to move this and how to manipulate energy. So the first thing they taught me about energy was how to gather up a ball of energy in my hand. Now you can actually move energy through your body and just to like a simple little practice is to move it up and down your arm, like from your shoulder to your fingertips. And you can, it's just mental focus. You're like moving this and you can feel it. So I would gather up this energy in my hand and um, they showed me how to create this ball of light. It was just a ball of energy. So after I got that down, they said, okay, now you can create something, use this energy to make something. And I would usually make a flower or an apple or an orange or something small like that would fit in my hand. And as I was going through this psychic self-defense training, I learned how to create a knife in my hand. And I could, just as easily make it disappear. So they were teaching me how to use energy, and then they started telling me about the shift. So this was back, this is like 1988 through 1994, something like that. And I didn't know anything, I didn't know what they were talking about, the shift, and they talked about earth changes. And the biggest thing about the shift was a change in conscious awareness. And they said that most people would not make it. Most humans in the world today were not ready to shift yet because shifting is about being in a high vibrational frequency with love in your heart and being awake and aware and doing things to enlighten yourself, to make yourself a better person, to open up your third eye and have that working. And so they said that the shift was going to cause great upheavals on the earth, a lot of different natural disasters. And I know some of the things that are happening today aren't natural, they're man-made. And so that's part of it too. It all goes together. Um, but the people who were ready to shift up into the next dimension, the next level of awareness, that they were going to do that during this shift. Like everything was going to happen at once. It was going to play out physically and mentally and spiritually and in every way. And they told me that I was going to be shifting into the fourth dimension. And I know a lot of people talk about the fifth dimension, but this is what they said to me. They said that when they look at me, they can see 10 dimensions, that I have 10 different dimensions to myself. They could see all of them at once just by looking at me, and that they wanted me to know that I was moving from 3D to 4D. And this would cause a great leap, in my level of awareness. And it isn't like, a traumatic thing. It's more like remembering who we are. Going up into the next level is about having a greater perspective on life, being able to see and understand so much more about the true nature of reality. And this is something to really work towards and to look forward to. And it does happen gradually. And right now, in the world right now, it is happening. This awakening is happening. And I know that the shift is happening for me because I am gaining conscious awareness. I can see it happening. My husband, John, and I, we talk about it all the time, and we're very aware of it. So they started telling me about this, back in 1988 or so. So do you have any questions, Adnan, or should I just keep going?
Oh, no, just keep going. I mean, I have some questions lined up kind of in the back of my mind, but I would like to just let you finish up and tell us all that you have to say.
Okay. So I went through this Star People School, and I've had so many experiences. I'm not sure how many, thousands maybe, and dealing with the military psychics at the same time. I've had a bunch of what you'd call my lab military abductions, and have been to underground bases, and the Star People. After I went through this 5-year training period with them, I actually went to a graduation ceremony with them. And there were other humans in my class. I had classmates. So the way that it happened is like when we were younger, there were a lot of children in this class with me, all humans. And to start, people would put us through this psychic testing. And the idea was that if you pass the test, you go up to the next level. Well, if you didn't pass the test, then the kids who didn't pass the test, they would usually bring them home, and they just didn't come back again. So passing a test and going up to the next level meant more and more psychic testing. But there was just a lot involved with that. It was about mental clarity and mental focus. And like one time, I was with all the kids in my class, and there were a couple of Star People there, the tall ones, and they were passing around this little. It just looked to me like a flat plastic diamond shape, which had little sections on it that you could push. And the Star People demonstrated this, and they made different tones. Like each little pad, when you pressed on it, would light up a different color and make a different musical tone. And so the idea was that we had to play the correct tone. So all the little kids in my class all took turns, and we did it. And whoever got it right, well, they passed that psychic test, and they go up to the next level. And there were times when they would put us inside of a maze, like a labyrinth, and we had to find our way out. And the star people always said this thing to me. They said, if you do a good job, and you pass this test, then you will get the castle. And I'd see an image like of this beautiful castle in my mind. And it's really interesting that I want to tie this in with another thought. I watched the interview with Ray Hernandez that you did recently. And I thought it was so interesting what he said about contactees. And I'm not sure if he meant alien abduction in general or just contactees, but there is some connection with near-death experience, which is just amazing because I also had a near-death experience. And when I had this near-death experience, I saw the castle that those star people were talking about. So I'll tell you about that when I get to that part. But first, so I graduated from the Star People School, and then I was on my own for a while. Like they stopped coming, like it just stopped abruptly, and they did show up, but it was more like once every couple of months or so, and this happened for a number of years. And I missed them. I was kind of lonely because I wanted to see them again. But I realize now, I didn't know at the time, but now I know that they were leaving me on my own to level up, to raise my frequency even higher and become more consciously aware and work with my third eye. They wanted me to do that on my own. And once I got to this certain level, then they started working with me again. And it was like the second part of the Star People School. It's like this was like going to college or something. And they picked up where they had left off with the energy manipulation. And so now, instead of just creating something in my hand, they were working with me on the etheric plane and showing me how to manifest reality. So the etheric plane is basically the blueprint of the physical plane. And whatever happens on the etheric plane is going to manifest physically sooner or later. So they would give me little projects to do. Like it started out with, like the very first thing I created on the etheric plane was a very simple tent, like a tent for camping. I really liked, I'm an outdoors person, like camping. So that was, that's like came into my mind. A tent is simple. It's got two sides. So I'm there on the etheric plane. I'm out of body. And by the way, I call this the alternate reality because for me, it's this other place where I go and I experience life. I'm awake and aware in this other place. And so I started pulling what I call ether right out of the air. Like I didn't see it, but I was just grabbing handfuls of it. And it was like ectoplasm, like a white, cottony, sticky kind of substance that I was taking balls of it and flattening it out to make the sides of the tent. And I was just sticking them on from the top down. I created my etheric tent. So that was like a really easy first thing that I did. But then I had experiences, and my husband John also took part in some of these, where we would go out of body together to the etheric plane, and we were practicing manifesting reality. And in this one case, we had the star people. The star people were there nearby watching, but they weren't really directing us. But we had like a cylinder that was floating in the air. It was like translucent, and we could actually stick our hands through it. And there was like some metal wire inside of this cylinder, which we could move around into different shapes. And so John and I actually went back and forth from the etheric plane to the physical plane. We were laying in our bed physically, and just mentally going in our minds. We were leaving our bodies and going to the etheric plane, playing around with this wire and creating a shape with it. And we'd come back to our bodies, and I'm not sure how this works, but we weren't really waking up. It seemed like we were in a lucid dream state, and we knew we were in the physical world. So this wire thing that we were constructing looked like wrought iron, like very durable wrought iron structure. So looking at it on the etheric plane was a little bit different. You know, it looked kind of thin and flimsy, and we could move it around. It was malleable. But then on the physical plane, it actually was manifesting as something really hard and dense and physical. So these are the kind of activities we were doing. And one night, I went to bed, went out of body, and walked out into my backyard. And there were some of my fellow classmates from the Star People School. About 3 or 4 were out there with me. And we were just sitting in the backyard. And a star person was there, and he handed us this cone. I call it an energy cone. It was shaped kind of like an ice cream cone. And we were using this, we were practicing with it to move energy. And so the idea was you hold this cone in your hand. Like first we held it with the big end up, like the big open cone end up. And I could take energy from my body and move it through my arm into this cone, and a big flow of sparkling light energy would come out the top of it. So I tried that, and then I flipped the cone over, and so the very small end of the cone was up and with a tiny hole in it. And so when I pushed the energy through it, the energy came out in a ball, and it was like a spinning ball of light. And so we were moving energy around like this, and everybody took a turn doing this. All the humans that were out there with me. So this was more of like practice of doing energy work. And I wanna say that our conscious awareness is it's eternal. You know, we are eternal spiritual beings, and our conscious awareness can go into like the astral body or the etheric body and totally be awake and aware. I mean, people know that when they're dreaming, they can become lucid. They can have lucid dreams, and they can bring their awareness to that place. I mean, it's like you're really awake. And you can do this when you're out of body on the astral plane and the etheric plane. So for me, I look at things kind of from a spiritual perspective, from the long term, because I know that when I'm done with this physical incarnation, I'm going to leave this body, and I'll probably just go into another body. You know, I'll just have another form, but my consciousness will still be intact, and I will just continue my work. And I've really seen evidence of this personally, because when somebody in my family is going to pass into spirit, they will come and tell me about it about a year beforehand in my dreams. This happened to me with my grandmother, and both of my grandmothers, and then with my father. And it's interesting that the same thing happened every time. It seemed like after they passed over, they rested, or they went to sleep for about a month, and then they came back and they saw me in my dreams. So the first time this happened was with my grandmother, Marcella, and I was 21 years old at the time. I started having really vivid dreams about her, and she was coming to me asking me to help her weed her garden. And I was also learning about dream symbolism at the time. And so I was trying to figure this out, you know, what it meant. But there were like 3 dreams where she came and asked me, please come over and help me weed my garden. And then the 3rd dream, it actually started snowing out. And in my dreams, normally snow means death. So I thought, okay, I better do something. I need to talk to my grandma. So I actually wrote her a letter and mailed it to her through the post office, which is pretty funny because she lived, a couple streets away from me. I was just really nervous to go and talk to her about it. So she got my letter, and then she contacted me, and she asked me to come over and talk to her. And I did, and I'm so glad that I did, because she told me things that she had never told anybody else in the family. She told me experiences that she'd had, um, like when her husband died, he came back to visit her, and I told I told her what I thought it was going to be like. I thought, she might be getting ready to transition into the spirit world, and I told her what I thought it might be like when she gets there. And so after this meeting with her, she started to go downhill pretty quick physically. And I had another dream about her, which was very moving, where she told me that she was going to pass into spirit in August of next year. Like she said, the second week of August. And so when I woke up the next morning from that dream, I immediately went and I told my mother and my aunt, who was visiting at the time. And they didn't quite know what to think, but I told them, I think grandma's going to die, in August. And so as it turned out, she did. She passed over. It was August 20th when she passed over. And then, like I said, it was about a month. I didn't see her. And then she came back and she saw me in my dreams. And she told me that I was almost right. Like I almost got it right, what I thought about what would happen. So that was cool. But then I had, a similar thing happen with the other grandmother and then with my dad. And so I'll tell you about my near-death experience now. This happened in 2010. I was 41 years old, and it was in my own bedroom. So that night, everything seemed to be normal during the day. I was fine. But that night when I went to bed, I started having what seemed to be really severe hot flashes. Although these were extreme, and it wasn't like something normal that a woman would experience during the menopause or something. It was more extreme than that. And I was getting these vibrations through my body, and my heart was beating kind of irregular, and I really couldn't sleep very well. I kept getting up and went to the kitchen and got some water, and I came back and I laid in the bed again. And my body was vibrating, and I was having these extreme waves of heat coming over my body. And all of a sudden, everything got white in my vision, became pure white. And the next thing I know, I felt like I was leaving my body, and I was definitely traveling through this white light. And perhaps it was the white, the tunnel of light that people talk about. I was definitely going through this white light, traveling through it. And it didn't happen instantly. It actually took, it was like 10 seconds or something. And then I stopped. I felt myself stop. And I opened my eyes, and I was standing looking at what appeared to be the sun, the sunshine, like right in front of me. And it wasn't an overbearing heat or anything. It was warm, and it was this orange yellow glow that was just moving all around. And there was almost like a flat disc that was about 20 foot in diameter. So it wasn't huge, but it was right in front of me, and it felt really good. It was like life energy, and I felt so good standing there, just feeling this energy. And I realized that I was standing on solid ground. So I thought, is this the sun? I'm not flying. I'm not floating in the sky. It feels like I'm standing on something. Like, where am I? And when I turned my head to look and see where I was, that changed the scene instantly. And I was standing on a beach, looking up at the sky, at the sun that was still up there. Beautiful blue sky. And I assumed there was an ocean behind me, but I didn't even turn around and look because right in front of me, up this big hill, was the castle. And it just reminded me of everything the star people had taught me. And I had thought about this castle so much that I think I had really created it etherically. And there it was. And I stood there and I thought about it and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm home. And I felt really happy. I was like really relieved and I was sure of it. I was sure that I was done with the physical plane and I had gone back home and here was my castle waiting for me. And I just felt really comfortable. I felt really relieved. I felt very safe. And I actually felt the earth plane, the whole earth existence. I felt it behind me, like far back over my left shoulder. And it was like, it just felt like a game to me. You know, when I was out of it, looking back at it, all the silly little things that had troubled me during my physical life were just nothing. They were just part of the game while I was there. And then when I was away from it, it just seemed like it was like made me chuckle a little bit, you know, how silly it was. And so I decided that I was going to walk up this hill to this castle and I was going to go in there and I was going to get in my bed and go to sleep for about a month, just like everybody else did. And so I started walking up the hill to go to the castle. And as I was walking up the hill, I could feel in another room, and I could see it with my third eye. I could see my family there, my entire family. The interesting thing was it wasn't just people who had died or passed over already. It was everybody, even the people who were still alive in a physical incarnation. Everybody was there in this meeting room. And I knew that I would go and meet with them later. But first, I really just wanted to go and take a nap for about a month. And so I'm walking up to the castle and I'm almost up there. And then the scene changes again. I am back down on the beach where I started. And now I'm looking up towards the castle. And behind this castle is a mountain range that goes on as far as I can see. So now my focus is on this beautiful white unicorn that's standing on a cliff edge. And I'm watching this unicorn, and there's the sun up in the sky, beautiful blue sky, and I hear this loud crack, and this lightning bolt comes across the sky, and the unicorn stretches her neck and sticks her horn up, and the lightning goes into her horn, into her body, and then I realize that I am the unicorn. And my body is filled with electricity. And so instantly I'm in a brand new place. I'm laying on a bed and I feel pretty comfortable. I've got my blankets with me, but it's not my bed. I'm in a different place. And it's kind of dark and not completely black, but kind of grayish and kind of misty a little bit. And in the distance, I see this pinpoint of white light. And next to me, over to my left, was 5 or 6 humans standing there talking very quietly amongst themselves. And when they saw that I was awake, I had opened my eyes, one of them walked over and he leaned over top of me and he said, "Boy, somebody really pulled a star out of the sky for you." And the next thing I knew, I could start to feel my physical body, and there was just electricity running through my whole body. My body was vibrating, and I was going back into my physical body. And I had so much information was just flying through my mind. And it was a little overwhelming, and I couldn't move. And after a short time, I was able to move my head, and I just let out this whisper. I said, "Help!" And John heard me, and he put his arms around me, and he rocked me gently until I was able to completely move again. So I was back in my physical body, and when I got back in my body, it felt so heavy. It felt like it had been dead. It was like cold and heavy, and it did not feel good. But I was just, of course, amazed. My life had changed because I had this new insight about, what death is, and definitely, it's nothing to be afraid of. It's something that happens naturally, and death is basically, it's a doorway to the rest of your life, and that continues. Our conscious awareness continues. So this physical world that we're in right now, it's so much more than we think it is. There's so much more going on. And the different levels, the astral and the etheric and all the different dimensions, we can have access to these things with our conscious awareness. And so I just wanted to make that point to everybody, and that we are multidimensional beings. We're eternal, and we are spiritual. And so let's see, where can I go from here? So the second part of my training with the Star People, this is when we got heavy into the shift, and what the shift is, and how to prepare for it. So I started doing things like, they were showing me scenes where the current world that we're in right now was ending. And I'll give you an example of that. This happened on, let's see, I have it written here. It was November 11th, 2012. And my star friends had worked with me a lot to help me prepare for the shift. And they did a lot of coming and checking on me and John to see if we were ready to do this. Were we ready to level up? And so November 11th, 2012, I went to sleep that night, as usual. Ended up going out of body to the etheric plane, to the alternate reality, where I met with two star people, two ancient star people, on this wooden ship. The interesting thing was the ship was like a man-made boat. It was a huge boat floating in the ocean. And these two ancient star people were our guides. So my husband John was on the ship with me, and there were probably about 5 other humans there, and I recognized them from the Star People School. And we had actually done this practice run a couple of times already on this ship. And then I remembered that it was coming back to me as I was becoming consciously aware. So I was awake and aware going through this. And I knew that I had a job on the ship, which had something to do with navigation or steering. And so I talked about this with my fellow classmates. And my husband was at the front of the ship. He was at the bow, sitting in a chair, like sitting watch. And on the bow of the ship, sitting in another chair, was a very ancient star man. And the star man and the star lady were, to me, clearly very wise, very old, and they were the tall, white kind, possibly Pleiadian. So I said hello to John, and I said hello to this ancient star man. And then I went to the back of the boat, to the stern, and there were 2 chairs. In one chair was this ancient star lady sitting there, and she was very happy to see me. She was like a grandmother. And I sat in the other chair, and she told me that we were getting ready to watch the end of the world, basically. And so I sat down in this chair, didn't know what to expect, and it was then that I looked out across the ocean and I saw a city skyline, and I realized it was New York City. And then the boat, which was floating in the ocean, levitated up out of the water, and I had to hang on to my seat because we were rocking back and forth. And we were floating probably not too high up, maybe like 20 foot up in the air, and I'm looking at the New York City skyline. And suddenly the skyscrapers looks like they're melting from the top down. Everything is disappearing. And what's it taking its place are these tiny little cellular structures, like little cells, and they're floating in the air. And so everything about the human-made skyline, all the buildings and everything, are just disappearing from the top down. And it made me feel like we are going through this reset, like, this is the end of the fourth world, beginning of the fifth world. I'm watching it happen. And I woke up in my bed the next morning and wrote all of this down. So that was one of the times they showed me that. And another time that they showed me was I was with these same two star people, these very old and wise star people. Went to bed that night as usual, went out of body. My conscious awareness went and met with them in the alternate reality. And we were standing outside in this little town. It was actually daytime. And there weren't very many humans around at all. Maybe 10 people, 10 humans walking around. And I noticed that all of the houses, like all of the human dwellings in this town, were all open. Like all the windows were open, all the doors were open, and everything looked kind of clean. Like there was not a lot of material things scattered about. Everything's just very kind of pure and clean. And so the star lady informed me that this world was going to end and a new one was going to begin. And what I saw behind me was this black nothingness, like this black void that was just enveloping everything behind us and was moving towards us. And she was very calm about it, very matter of factly, like, okay, this is the way it works. We're just going to walk through town. We're going to walk through all these empty houses, and this blackness is going to come and just disappear everything behind us. So I start walking with the star lady, and the other people in town joined us, and we walked through the first house. And as we're walking through, I look behind me, and this blackness is just enveloping the entire house as we go through it. And we go out the backyard through another house, and we're walking towards the ocean. So we're right there on the coast, again, at the water. Then this ancient starman joins us, and we're all walking together, and we come to this last backyard, and we're standing on the grass. Everything behind us is gone. And so this was the last piece of land that we had to stand on. So it was a little nerve-wracking for some of the people. And I was doing my best to just be calm, and the star people were very calm about it, as if they'd done it many times before. And the star lady asked me to kind of, go around and comfort people and let them know that everything's okay. And the grass that we were standing on started to turn black. And so we were still able to stand. We had solid ground to stand on, but it was just blackness. And this blackness came in and just enveloped everything except for the ocean. So we still had the water there. So that was another time that they showed me how this was going to play out. And so on March 28th, 2015, I go into another alternate reality experience. I'm awake and aware, and I am on the ship again. The wooden boat looks man-made, but those two star people are here. And I'm sitting in the same chair on the back of the boat, but this time, sitting another chair next to me is a girl who was in the Star People school with me, a fellow human classmate. And so this star person comes up to us and says, okay, we're going to dismantle the matrix. And we're going to do this with our mental focus. And the star person hands me and this girl a piece of paper. And so there are written instructions on this paper of how to do this. So I sit there and I start reading, and I get about maybe one paragraph into the instructions of how to dismantle the matrix. And my eyes start just fluttering like in REM state, just uncontrollably. And I let it happen. And pretty soon, I am releasing everything that I know about the world. Everything in my mind that has to do with the current world. All these thoughts are going through my mind about life and all the experiences I've had and everything. I'm just letting it all go. And I'm also releasing everything about myself, like my personality, the role that I play in life, you know, the person that I think I am, the role that I'm playing right now as this character. I'm releasing all of that. It's like a huge data dump, just clearing it out, getting rid of all of it. So this all took maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes or less. And I sat there, and this girl was sitting next to me. She did the same thing. And I knew that there were a couple other people on the ship that were also doing this, but there were also other people in different locations doing the same thing. And so I felt really cleansed. I didn't forget who I was. I still remembered, who I am and everything, but I just felt very cleansed, and I had really let go of a lot of baggage. I had just let it go. And so my human friend and we stand up and we're looking around, and we can see that the only thing left is the ocean. Although I did see a little bit of land far in the distance. And we knew that we were in the alternate reality, and we both jumped off of the boat into the water, and it was only about knee deep. And so we were wading through the water, and we knew, okay, what comes next? Something has to happen next. So as we're walking in the water, we see this little doorway, and it really reminded me of The Truman Show, if you've ever seen that movie. It's like the doorway to leave the world, to leave this possibly a simulation that we're living inside of right now. So we go towards this door, and there's light coming through the doorway, and I hear voices from the other side. And it's like, friendly people over there talking to each other. And this girl and we go up the steps of this platform, and we're going to walk through the door. And I'm totally expecting that we're just going to go in here and we're going to see, what's next? What do we do next? But then I woke up. I woke up in my bed again and wrote all this stuff down. So I started going through these different experiences night where I'm like going inside of my own mind, and I know that I'm inside of my own mind, and I'm like going down hallways, and I see all these different rooms, and going into these rooms and discovering what's in there. And some of these rooms have things from my childhood, and it's so nice to go in there and discover them, things that I put in there that I had forgotten about. And one night I was doing this, and I went into one of those rooms, and I found two reptilian entities inside of a room, inside of my mind. And so I knew, that's not good. Nobody's supposed to be in here except for me. And so I went in there and I chased them out. I beat them up pretty good, and I chased them out. And I ended up going into other rooms. One of them had a demon in it. And so, I realized that I have been living in this physical world, going through the indoctrination and the programming and the mind control. And a lot of us have unknowingly been going through this. And we've lived through all the propaganda and a bunch of lies about history and about who we really are and all of this. And I know that through mind control and some people unfortunately experience this through satanic ritual abuse or MK Ultra mind control. They can actually create rooms inside of your mind, and they can create altars, like multiple personality disorder. So this was the kind of thing I was going in my mind, and I was getting rid of it, like clearing house, like just clearing it out, making things pure and clean. And I also went inside of my own mind, and I was detangling wires, which I realized were neural passageways. There's sort of like electrical wires and stuff in my mind that were all mixed up, and I was untangling them and creating new neural passageways. And you can do that easily. You can create new neural passageways in your brain by simply thinking new thoughts, starting new hobbies. Get rid of your old habits that are not serving you and start doing something brand new that's fun and something that's good for you, that brings happiness. And so this whole thing about the shift, the Star people started teaching me about it back in like 1988 and up until this present day. And so what happened for me is on January 20th, 2020, after I had done all this work, gone through all this process with the Star people, January 2020, I go out of body at night and I meet with about 5 human people who were in the Star People school with me. And we all know what's happening. We don't even have to talk about it. We just all know. We go flying straight up into the sky. All of us together as a group flying straight up into the sky. And it was daytime, actually. And so for a while, I was just looking straight up. And for a while, all I could see was like blue sky and clouds. But then I started to see like a shimmering reflection up there, almost like a silvery metal, like a mirror maybe, and it's reflecting light. I hadn't seen that before. That was new. So I knew we were going pretty fast towards this. And as we got closer and closer, I realized I was looking at water. Like this is an ocean that is above. And all of us went straight into this ocean, into this body of water. And when I got inside of it, and I was still looking up, and I realized that there was a light source above this, even above this, shining down through it. And so we come up through this water, and we fly out of a lake, and a beautiful blue sky with a sunshine, and what looks like the earth. It's a beautiful earth. It's like the plane above the earth plane. Like this is where the next level is the next dimension of human existence. It's the next level. And so we were up there, and I knew right away, I called it the world of bliss because it just felt beautiful. Everything was love. There was grass and trees and bushes and flowers, and everything was lush and green. And there were people, there were some humans, not that many, but there were some. I saw a man sitting with his dog, and I saw some horses in the distance. And so some of these friends of mine from the Star People School, they actually stayed there, didn't come back down. But I decided to come back down to Earth because I knew that there was a window of opportunity. Like I would have time to go back and forth. I could go back and help wake up more people and bring more people up there, to give more people the opportunity to help wake them up. And so I knew I could do that about 5 times before this doorway closed. So I was very confident in doing that. So after that happened, that was January 2020, same thing happened as before with the Star People School. When I graduated, they didn't come anymore for a long time. Same things happen to me now. They stopped coming. But I have seen them a couple of times. And basically, we're just waiting for the shift to happen. And I know that the Star People are someplace else. They're working on this. I know that they're urgently working on it. They're always urgently working on something. But they are helping other people prepare. And they are they're getting preparations done. They're getting ready for this shift to happen. And so that's what we're going through in the world right now is this great awakening. And John and I call it the right hand path and the left hand path. So you've got the people on the right hand path who want to, they're consciously making an effort to become enlightened and to become better people, to raise their vibrational frequency, to be as happy as much as possible. I know that's difficult in this crazy time that we live in, but to raise your frequency and to be in love and to just let go of the old matrix system that is falling apart around us. Don't stare at it. Don't get caught up in it. Don't get dragged down by it, because it's time to let that go and focus instead on manifesting a beautiful new reality, which we are totally capable of doing as human beings. The left-hand path are the people who they're just not ready. They're not ready to level up yet. They are kind of caught up in the matrix system, and they're part of that, and they have given their consent. And they are going to watch the end of the matrix play out. And I think that those of us who are shifting, like I said, it's a gradual thing. It happens a little bit at a time, and I can see, I'm aware that's happening. But I think there's also a moment. And I don't know the date. I don't know what the moment is, although the clue that I have from the star people is that it has something to do with a magnetic pole shift. And, you know, we are electromagnetic beings. So it makes sense that if magnetic north shifts, that will affect us. It will affect our bodies and everything about us. And even mainstream media has been talking for years now about magnetic north shifting. So it's a known thing that is happening. So I think that's related to it. I think that has something to do with it. And so the book that I just published, The Shift, is about, you know, it's basically covers my experiences with the star people from about 2005 until now. And it talks about raising vibrational frequency and just clearing your mind out, making new neural passageways, coming up with new ideas and new thoughts that can help raise you up, and filling yourself with love and light. And so that's what the book is about. And okay, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. I didn't want to interrupt you. It seemed like you were in the flow, and I know personally when I'm in the flow, it's like it's best to just let me speak. So thank you for that again. So I have a few questions I would like to ask, and since we're pretty far into it, then I figured there's plenty of people that want to ask some questions of their own, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
So one is actually going back. Sorry, I'm gonna have to check myself to make sure I'm muted. I've been coughing again, and everyone knows that I'm still getting over a cold. So the question was in the very beginning, and we've heard this through several different witnesses too. What I'm wondering about these people that are I guess part of these My Labs, are they? Is this one? How do they know to come after you? And two, is this like sort of kind of like a alternate group of humans that doesn't belong to this government? It's not part of the regular structure that we all believe exists, and that they just kind of do all of that outside of this, outside of anybody's prying eye. So if you can speak to that first, if you have any information, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Sure. Well, like I said, when I was little, when I was 7 years old, I met these government agents for the first time. And, it's a great question. I don't know the real answer, but because I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But I think that they somehow knew I was being visited by the star people. And when they came to see me, they stuck this piece of metal on my rib, And I'm not sure what that was. It could have possibly been an implant. But over the years, I've gotten many implants. I've gotten some from the Star people, and I've gotten some from the military. So these implants, I imagine, are tracking devices, but I know that they can also uh, send and receive data. I'm sure there are more complicated, than I'm thinking. I can only imagine the technology that the military has. They can probably do things like, control behavior and things like that with these implants. But as far as them, how do they know? I'm not really sure how they know. Maybe there is a connection between the alien abduction phenomenon and the whole military abduction, because the military does their own abducting. And sometimes they will wear fake rubber suits to pretend that they are aliens. Um, and they do this, I think, to scare contactees and abductees and to get information out of them. But I've seen it a number of times where they're actually pretending to be aliens, and they use holographic technology also, like a virtual reality. Like one night, for example, I was probably, I don't know, 25 years old or so. And during the night, I had this experience where I was looking, I'm sure it was a holographic image. It was a whole row of aliens. They looked really menacing. But it was like one alien and like 10 or 15 more, like a funhouse mirror that I'm looking into. And they're all laughing at me, pointing at me, laughing at me. And I'm like, well, this is not normal. Even like negative type aliens like Greys, they don't bother to do that. They've got better things to do than stand there and laughing at me. And I ended up getting an implant in my nose. When I woke up in the morning, the side of my face hurt so bad I couldn't even touch it. I knew it was military. They had put this implant inside of my nostril. And after like 2 or 3 days, I was actually able to feel it in there. And it was a very small metal rod. And it was moving inside of my nose, and it kind of was spinning around, and I ended up losing track of it. So who knows? It maybe went up into my brain or something. I don't know. So these people, I call them the secret government. Yeah, they're definitely secret covert operations. They're not like the regular government people that we know in government offices. They are working underground. And underground, there's lots of military bases. There's even cities underground, and there are tunnels that connect these cities. So they have an extensive network. But these military abductions, they happen. They're very real. And there are military trained psychics that go out and harass people and get information from people. And I've actually had one military psychic in particular who I think is actually my caseworker, which is pretty crazy, but she's been following me around for a long time, up until recently when I kind of put her in her place and she hasn't come back again, because I do know how to protect myself from psychic attack. So over the years, that has dwindled away for me, and it's not something I have to deal with anymore. But yeah, there's definitely a secret part of the government who's doing these things.
Okay, thank you for that. So before I ask the second question, for everyone else watching, now would be the time, if you have any questions for Bonnie, to submit on YouTube or Twitch. Please remember to put 3 asterisks before your question. And also, you can ask a question directly by joining the Telegram group that's going on right now. The link is in the description below. Just download it. I should have actually mentioned it earlier, but for those of you that actually are already watching, just raise your hand and I'll add you to my queue. Also, in the description below, Bonnie's website, links to her different books and whatnot are all in the description. So I always encourage people to go and check them out. Bonnie, the other question that I had was regarding the shift. So the way you were speaking, that there's still actual physical change that we're going to notice, or is it just more authentic? I mean, not the authentic, more of a change to where we just notice less problems in our lives, more happiness, and things were just going great and more peaceful, or that's what I had always kind of foreseen. And in a way, I'm feeling like the way we live, my family and I, we're already kind of already there. We see the world kind of doing all kinds of crazy stuff around us, but it's not happening where we are. And so
Yeah.
I always kind of viewed that as this, this is my world, that's their world. I can't do much about it. If I go into their world, I'm going to make it my problem. So if you can speak on that, I'd appreciate it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really a great way to look at it. I feel the same way about like John and I, where we live in our world that we're creating, in our little reality bubble that we live in. We're very happy, and things are going very well for us on our path. Things are looking good, but not so with most of the rest of the world. So I think, according to the Star People, we are going to see a lot more physical changes, a lot more upheavals in the world, and a lot of it has to do with people waking up and realizing that they've been lied to their entire lives and demanding the truth. And the truth is going to come out. It's coming out now. I mean, everything is going to become known to us, those of us with eyes to see. Like I said, there's the right hand path and the left hand path. If you're on the right hand path, you're already working on becoming enlightened and living a good life and finding happiness and doing things that bring joy into your life. So you're already on a great path, and things are going to get better and better for you, and we are going to gradually shift into higher levels of awareness and greater perception of what the world really is. So you're right, people like us who have love in our hearts, things are going to get better for us. The world is going to get better for us because we are manifesting it. But for people on the left-hand path who don't know this, who have consented, who are giving all of their energy to the controllers of the world right now, the controllers of society, and all the lies and the propaganda and the mind control and just all the terrible things that are happening. These people are caught up in that flow, and that's where they're going. They're kind of going down, they're getting dragged down with that. And I think that they are going to see some very bad things. So it could be like we're looking at two different earths. It could be that those of us on this path who are moving up a level, things are just going to get better for us. But unfortunately for the other side, they're going to have to play out life in the end of the matrix.
Okay, thank you for that. So the first question I have, and for those again, if you've submitted a question earlier, please resubmit it again. Everyone's been chatting it up, so I will have to scroll quite a lot up there to find all those original questions. So starting now, if you can submit it again, I'd appreciate it. So first question I have is from Hazel. She's asking, is the left hand going to hold the right hand back?
No, because well, that's the thing. If you're on the right hand path, you can't let it hold you back. You can't get dragged down into it. It's up to you to just let that go. Let it all flush down the drain. Don't give it your energy. Don't stare at the train wreck, because you can fall into that. You can fall into lower level vibrational frequencies of depression, anger, fear. If you get caught up in that, yeah, you could go down with it, but they're not going to drag us down if we don't let them. If we focus on love and light, and by the way, I don't mean that you can't take action. I mean, now's the time. If you're a light worker, if you're a warrior of light, of truth, now's the time to take action. If you came here to help humanity, now is the time to act. It's the time to stand up, speak your truth, speak your mind, but all with love in your heart. And I'm not talking about a mushy kind of love, where you're hiding in your house and you can only focus on love. I just mean this love is like the power of creation. This is the power of source. And it's the strongest thing there is. There is nothing stronger. And I've learned this from dealing with psychic attackers. In recent years, my method has been, well, don't fight back. Just let my defenses go, fill my heart with love, and I end up stopping the attack because there's nothing to attack. There's nothing to do. I'm not afraid. I'm not giving in. I'm not giving them the reaction that they want. I end up going up to these attackers and changing their frequency. I'm entraining them with my higher vibrational frequency of love and light. I'm actually entraining them and bringing them up to where I am. It's probably temporary. They're probably going to go, back down to their little hole. But it's up to us. It's up to us to find that inner strength, to fill ourselves with love and light and lift ourselves up, because we have that opportunity right now. It is our challenge. It's our test. And it's available there for us to move up into.
Great, thank you for that. Julie Hall is asking, why would the military do these things?
Great question. I don't know the answers to that. I think that possibly they are trying to prevent the shift from happening, which is not possible. I think they are threatened by the star people. I think they're threatened by, anybody who has contact with the higher benevolent, loving entities. They don't want to promote that kind of thing. They want to know what's going on, and they want to try to be in control of it, and they want to try to stop it. This government that we're talking about, the secret government and the controllers of society, they have basically usurped the power of humanity. They have taken it away over generations of time. They have just, through the education system, through all the indoctrination and the mind control, they have basically kept humans in a hypnotic stupor. Humans, most of them are asleep. They are under a spell, literally. And so this secret part of the government, it's probably not even humans at all. It could be fallen angels, demons, reptilians. The controllers who are in charge right now, they're not the politicians that you see on TV. Yeah, these are like puppets. These people who are, they're just the PR. They're for bringing out the messages, putting out ideas that they want people to believe in, and they're basically being told what to say by their higher puppet masters, the controllers. So I think that the secret government does this thing because they want to be in control. They don't want people waking up, and they want to try to control the shift. They want the shift of awareness to not happen. They'll do anything to stop it from happening. I think that's why the world's so crazy right now. They're pulling out all the stops, and they are hurrying because these controllers, they know the shift's coming. They're aware of it, and they're panicking. So they're doing everything they can to try and stop it, but that is not going to happen. The shift will happen. It's a natural process that happens over and over again, and we're living through it right now.
Great, thank you. It shifted on me. Angus B. Kinnard is asking, how do the star people view written language? Is it different? Do they use it?
Well, there's all different types of star people, and I think maybe they have some type of written language. Like when I've been on different ships with them, I've sometimes seen what could be writing, and to me it looks kind of like geometric shapes and different symbols. So I think they do have some form of writing. Maybe it's like hieroglyphics, but I think for the most part they're using mental telepathy and forms of communication like that. And Yeah, I think possibly they do have forms of language and written language. And sometimes, like the Pleiadians, who I worked a lot with, they would actually speak with me. They're using their lips, they're like moving their mouths and talking. And so these people are like family to me. And when they communicate with me, it's very natural and flowing. And sometimes they are actually speaking, but a lot of times it's just mental, like mental telepathy.
Great, thank you. Um, Penny Coons is asking, how can we open our third eye? And have you seen the Sasquatch people?
Okay, so the third eye. So there are certain things you want to avoid. One of them is fluoride. And they put fluoride in the water. Sometimes they put it in salt. It could be in different food items. So you have to be careful to stay away from fluoride. Don't use toothpaste that has fluoride. And that's one of the things that can calcify your third eye and stop it from working. It actually calcifies the pineal gland inside of your brain. So most people have calcified pineal glands, which is why they're not using their third eyes to manifest a good life for themselves. They're just not aware of it. So awakening your third eye, once you start doing things to make yourself a better person, like getting rid of old habits and doing things that are mainly happy, keeping yourself up in a high vibrational frequency, this will help you because your your third eye is natural. You're supposed to have it. Every human has it. It's just not activated. And one thing that you can do is exercise at night. Every night when you go to sleep, maybe like 10 or 15 minutes after the lights go out and you're in a dark room, make sure you're in a dark room to do this practice. Your body releases melatonin to help you sleep. The pineal gland actually does this. It releases melatonin. So you can start to exercise the muscles of this pineal gland. There's actually physical muscles to make your third eye work. So what I do is when I go to bed, I turn the lights off after about 15 minutes or so. I will focus on the center of my forehead and I will start to see this purple light. It starts off kind of like a circle, like a purple circle filled with purple light, and it might start pulsing like a flower. And you can see this. If you can get this working, then you've got your third eye active. And just do this every night. And I've done things like once I can get this purple light working and I can see it, I can use mental focus. I literally like using muscles in my brain to push, and I can make this purple light so brilliant. I mean, it is glowing, and my eyes can be open or closed, doesn't matter. If you're in a dark room, you can see it. I can change the color of it. I can change it to blue, yellow, green, different colors. And sometimes if I keep doing this, if I can keep it going, that's not easy, but you can keep it going and you'll start to see images appear. And when I was little, like I said, I would just naturally see images that were glowing and lit up by my third eye of things that what I liked, like I was projecting candy and ice cream and toys. But anyway, so to awaken your third eye, stay away from fluoride, stay away from negativity, bring yourself up to a higher vibrational frequency of love and light, and practice this moving your third eye muscle inside of your head. Do this at night, 15 minutes after the lights go out. It will start working naturally.
Sorry, I had myself muted again. But can you speak to the second part where she was asking, have you seen Sasquatch people?
Oh, I have not personally seen them. No, I think I heard one. I think one time my husband John and I were in Georgia and we were in a cabin on the top of a mountain. And I was out on the balcony and I heard this loud kind of like a yell. And I thought, what the heck is that? It sounds like a bear, but it was also kind of human sounding. And I have heard the recordings of Bigfoot and Sasquatch calls. It's really, really interesting and really fascinating, these sounds. You should, whoever's listening, you should go and just look up, Bigfoot calls, because they have their own language and really interesting, beautiful voices. But I do think that I heard one when I was in Georgia. I do think that they're real. I do think that they are living out in remote areas, in forests and places where people don't usually go, but many people have seen them and caught them on video and recorded the sounds. So I think they're definitely a real thing.
Great, thank you for that. Estera K is asking or stating, has Bonnie met any of the people in her classes in the physical?
Yeah, I don't think I have. I would sure love to. And I kind of keep an eye out when I see videos from other contactees, and sometimes, maybe they look a little familiar. And I did want to just say, I did watch your interview, Adnan, with Jacqueline Smith, the contactee, and the things that she said in the beginning of her talk, like when she was little, and the things she would do on the ships. It's totally right on. I mean, it's the same things that I remember of, like when we were little kids, of doing really simple little practices like in kindergarten where you draw or you color, but we were doing it like using our minds. And like she was talking about little light panels on the wall, and I can remember like beautiful little different colored lights and stuff, just kind of fascinating to me, still is actually. But no, I haven't actually met anybody yet in person in the physical world yet, but I would like to.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Next question is from Labels369, asking, do star people appreciate music like we do? We have great music.
Yeah, I think they do. I think they do. I've actually had experiences where the star people have shown me different types of rooms like they have for recreation. And one of them is when you go inside this room and it has a really tall ceiling, you can just think about your favorite song and it will start playing. Maybe it comes out of your mind or, your memory of it or something, but it will actually start playing. And I have seen um, certain types of star people actually playing musical instruments. To me, they look like a piano and um, what was it, like a stringed instrument, like a cello, violin. So I have seen a trio of three star people actually playing music together. But I think they really do appreciate those types of things and art, and everything is beautiful. And really anything that you do that's creative, where you're using your imagination and your third eye. Yes, I think they're very much into that. And I should also say that my family, the Pleiadians, they are very kind of happy people, and they'll actually tell jokes, and they do laugh. And I'm very comfortable around them, and I'll say funny things, and they'll laugh, and we joke around. So they're very very happy, very loving people, very comfortable to be around. I feel safe around them, and yeah, they definitely like music and art and everything creative.
Great, thank you, Bonnie. The next question is from Ernst Fazekas. I'm sorry, I'm always butchering these names. Um, the question is, how is God or the source linked up with your experiences compared to Jesus and his existence? His teachings were higher vibrational, but man seems to have interpreted it in many ways.
Well, when I say source, I am talking about God. I'm also talking about the Christ's spirit. I think it's all the same thing, this higher vibrational frequency of love and light. And yeah, so to me, source is, I can feel source when I am truly happy and filled with love, and I meditate and I focus on this. I get connected to my highest self. So the part of me that is a spiritual, eternal being, this is what I'm connecting with. And by doing this, I'm connecting with source and that Christ spirit that is within our hearts. And we all have this within us, and we all have that capability. I think that our higher selves are, we're at home, we're in a safe place, we're watching this play out. And the part of us that comes here is just a tiny little part of our total awareness that's kind of playing like almost like a sim character. Like we're in a simulation and we're kind of playing this learning game. But you can really do your best and be totally in control of your life if you are connected to source and this Christ spirit that you're talking about. So the teachings of Jesus and all spiritual leaders are very important and part of source and part of us. It's who we really are in our hearts. We are spiritual, eternal beings. And when we're connected to source, then we're in our true power. And it's all about this love that you fill your heart with, this power of creation. It's time for all of us to do this right now. I mean, this is what we have to do right now because the old world's falling apart and we cannot get caught up in that drama that's going on over there. They're going to do that. They're going to end that part of the world, that matrix that's been built up. It's going to end. So we are, we're using the love in our hearts. We're connecting to source and this Christ light, Christ consciousness. This is what we're doing. We're bringing about a brand new reality. We're going to manifest that.
Great, thanks, Bonnie. All right, so the last question I have for you tonight is from Edward Sosa, and I'm not too familiar with this. I don't know what this exactly is, but I figured I'll run it by you and we'll work it out together. It says, is the Kali Yoga going to be part of the polar shift as the yogis in the Indian tradition speak of golden age? Does that make sense?
Yes, the Kali Yuga. Yes.
Oh, what?
The
I'm
Kali
sorry.
Yuga.
What is that? If you could speak a little bit on that, because I have no idea either.
Yes, it's from the Vedic tradition. There are different world ages that we go through, and they say that right now we're in the Kali Yuga, which is a world age that is coming to an end. And this world age it's kind of, it's rock bottom. I mean, we've hit bottom. We've forgotten who we are. We don't know how to live anymore. We don't remember our true powers. And we've devolved. We've devolved to this spot where we're at right now. But we are swinging up out of the Kali Yuga. We are going up into a brand new world. And the great thing is that we're not just going back up into the phase that's next to the Kali Yuga. We're going straight back up to the top. We're going to a brand new world. And from what I hear from many different spiritual teachers, this has never happened before in the history of humanity. And that's a long time. We're going to shift back up into being, out of control, forgetting who we are, not in control of our natural human abilities that we're supposed to have. We're leaving this world and we're going back up into being at the top again. We're going to know who we are. We're going to be able to manifest reality. And in love and light, we're going to be enlightened beings living in a higher dimension. I know this is happening. I'm totally going in that direction, and I see it happening. This awakening is occurring. We are leaving the Kali Yuga, and we are moving up into higher consciousness. Yeah, so that is part of the shift.
All right. Yeah, no, because sometimes when I don't know something, I can't tell if people are just trying to pull one over on me or if it's actually something. Yeah. So, well, Bonnie, again, thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it. Thank you for your in-depth sharing, and certainly people that find this very interesting and want to know more. The more details, the better. That's what I always find. So, I don't think I was interrupting too much.
No,
So,
no.
but so before we conclude, I just wanted to ask you if you could for those watching, all of this is going to be in the description. It actually is in the description right now. But Bonnie, I just would like you to just leave your website, any other links or information that you would like to share.
Okay. Well, my two books are Journey with the Star People and The Shift. You can find them at my website, alienabductionhelp.com. And my other website is Awaken Video, and I run that with my husband, John.
All right, great. Thank you for that. All right. So everyone else watching, I hope you take advantage of checking out the sites, read up on all that information, because after all, you come here for the information, at least I hope, and not just looking at this as some kind of entertainment value. So, but anyway, check it out. Do you have any contact ways that people could submit more questions if they didn't get a chance tonight?
Yes, well, at my website, Alien Abduction Help, I have a contact form, and my email address is also on the website or at awakenvideo.org.
Great, great. All right. Well, Bonnie, thank you. Everyone else
Thank you,
watching,
Ann.
thank you. And everyone else watching, I appreciate you all joining in. Share this video. I hope it goes wild, and share it with anyone else that would like to know more about this information. So thank you again. I'll catch you guys later. Not exactly sure when I'm going to do the next interview because I have some other things lined up for myself, but just stay tuned. Thank you all, and have a good night.